If you clicked on this video, then you probably either own or are about to invest in a short-term rental property, and you want to get that property up and running and cash flowing as quickly as possible.
And we know that the setup process can be overwhelming, time-consuming, and costly.
Every day that your property sits empty is a day of lost income, but don't worry, we've got you covered.
In this video, we're going to share 6 simple but very effective tips for shortening the time it takes to go from closing on your property to get it online and making money as a short-term rental.
Let's dive in.
Tip number 1 is to take detailed photos and measurements during the escrow period.
When you first get under contract on a property, you're probably wishing for, well, 1, for the whole escrow process to go smoothly, but also 2, for that escrow process to kind of fly by because you're ready to get it on the market and cash flowing.
But we want to shift your focus a little bit because the escrow period shouldn't be a waiting time. It should really be a planning time.
There is a lot that can be planned for your property even before you close, and it all starts with taking detailed measurements and photos.
The time of your home inspection is probably a good time to do this yourself because you'll likely have access to the property for a few hours. So when we visit the house for an inspection, we'll bring our regular tape measure and then we'll bring our laser measuring device too.
We'll link our favorite one in the description box below, but the laser measure allows us to take those measurements very quickly and easily in each room.
And a little tip, if you only want to measure like a certain portion of the room, like up into a window or halfway across the living room or something, you can have someone hold out their hand, shine the laser at it, and then take that measurement.
Genius.
We like to video record these measurements just so they're right there on our phones whenever we need to access them. And then we also take photos of every angle of every room.
Basic room dimensions are something probably everyone thinks of, but there's a few tricky spots or things that you might not have thought of that we'll go over next.
You'll want to measure the inside of your future supply closet if it doesn't already have built-in shelves. This way you can plan out all of your storage solutions for that space.
If you're going to replace things like cabinet poles and drawer poles, go ahead and measure all of those and don't assume they're the same, even if they look the same between like your kitchen and your bathroom.
We've made that mistake.
A 1/4 inch makes a difference and doesn't work.
No, boom, size does matter.
Size does matter.
Carl!
And speaking of bathrooms, if you're replacing bathroom mirrors and sconces, make sure to take good measurements of that whole area so that your new mirror and sconce don't accidentally bump into each other.
In bedrooms, include things like the door swing dimension. So if you're going to put a rug down, it won't interfere with the door swing.
Also, ceiling heights for curtains, and don't forget to measure exterior spaces like patios and balconies.
We take all these photos and videos, put them together into an album that we can share with each other. And then we also take detailed notes, which leads us to tip number 2.
Tip number 2 for a faster Airbnb setup is to start up a shared note on your phone. We're iPhone users, but I'm sure there's an Android equivalent.
We have a shared note for every single property in our portfolio, whether it's a property we own or one that we manage.
This is where we keep all of the important details about the property once it's up and running as a rental, but it's also where we create and track our to-do list.
It's really easy to set up a note, share it with someone else. You can both add things, check on things, and make sure you aren't like doubling up on efforts.
Shared notes are honestly just like a general life and marriage tip. We use them for everything from grocery lists to writing down the names of parents in our kids' preschool. We use shared notes for everything.
Too many names to remember, but hi.
Tip number 3 is once you have your measurements, your notes, and your photos, is to start your planning during that escrow period.
If you are planning to outsource your design and setup, now is a good time to start trying to find someone to do that for you. Maybe not actually hiring someone because you never know what can happen in escrow, but just getting that ball rolling.
However, if you do plan to do all the setup yourself, really get that planning going during the escrow period.
Our goal with any new property purchase is to have every single detail planned out in advance so that we can get started on purchases the day that we close escrow.
In some cases in the past, we've actually started a few days before escrow closes, maybe when contingencies are removed from the sale agreement, but it's probably safer, if things are harder to return or just safer in general, probably just wait until you close.
Kelly really likes to online shop.
Wait on the purchases, don't wait on the planning. And we will link a few of our free resources for design and setup in the description box below. And we'll also link a few of our other helpful setup and design related videos.
Tip number 4 is to avoid time-consuming DIY projects.
This was something that we did a lot of when we were first getting started, mostly because we were trying to save money wherever we could. So we completely understand the appeal of DIY, and we do still take on a lot of DIY projects, especially when we're doing a home renovation.
But if you decide to take on like a bathroom renovation, it's your first time and it takes you 3 months, and you could have hired someone who would have got it done in a month or less, that's 2 months of lost revenue that probably would have paid for your cost of hiring that person to do the renovation.
And probably saved you a lot of headaches if this was your first big reno.
You said renovations.
We also see this a lot with clients trying to take on a DIY setup for the first time, where they come to us for a quote and then they decide to do it themselves, and it takes them 4 to 6 months when we could have got it done in 4 to 6 weeks.
Know your strengths, know your skill sets, and then decide in advance whether it makes sense to hire someone or if you are able to tackle and complete a given project in a reasonable amount of time.
This is not us trying to plug our design and setup services, because we're not doing any client work right now unless you're directly in our area. And it's also not us trying to dissuade you from doing it yourself. If you have a good eye for design and you don't mind putting in the work, then by all means, have at it.
Tip number 5 is to anticipate any maintenance or repair issues and have a handyman or someone lined up to knock those things out once you close escrow.
Also, if you catch any of these issues during the inspection, you might be able to get the seller to either take care of repairing the work or to reimburse you for it. But this might not be an option if you're purchasing using seller financing or sub-2.
During that same time, where we're taking measurements and maybe in an inspection, I'll go through the house, look at all the things, but in particular things like how well the drains flow, whether any faucets are dripping, whether, they might need a smart thermostat and the HVAC system. The list goes on and on. But the point is here that you want to try and find out whatever you might need to do beyond just furnishing and setup to speed that process up, get your property online.
And write it all down on your shared notes.
Wrote some stuff down on my notes app. Let me just...
And tip number 6 is to take advantage of all of our free resources. We have so many options available for you, from our sample inventory to design guides to even shop the room blog posts for inspiration for your property.
The most helpful thing about all these resources is we've done all the shopping, the review scouring, and the product testing for you.
These lists, like our sample inventory, are the exact lists that we use ourselves when we're setting up one of our own properties or a property for clients.
And just in time for summer, we're launching a new list that's all about patios, backyards, and pools. And you can access that using the link in the description box below, or just go to arrivals.com/outdoor.
We'll leave another video linked here on screen that we think you might want to check out next.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.